Poor girl marries 70-year-old man and the end after 1 week of living together. Brief story details: Isabella, a young woman from a poverty-stricken family, marries a wealthy 70-year-old man, Sterling Caldwell, to save her family from financial ruin. However, she faces immediate hostility from Sterling Caldwell's granddaughter, Olivia, who resents Isabella's presence and plots to drive her out of the mansion. The story explores themes of sacrifice, betrayal, resilience, and the complexities of family relationships. The dust motes danced in the single shaft of sunlight that pierced the gloom of Isabella's cramped home, illuminating the threadbare fabric of the worn sofa where her mother, Sterling Rosa, sat weeping silently. The air hung heavy with the scent of damp earth and despair. Outside, the ramshackle walls of their tiny house groaned under the relentless assault of the wind, mirroring the storm raging within Isabella's heart. At 19, Isabella carried the weight of her family's survival on her slender shoulders. 3 years ago, her father, a fisherman, was lost to the unforgiving sea, leaving Sterling Rosa to raise Isabella and her 2 younger siblings, Manuel and Valentina. They lived a hand-to-mouth existence, each day a struggle against gnawing hunger and the constant fear of eviction. Isabella possessed a quiet strength, a resilience forged in the crucible of poverty. Her dreams of education and a life beyond the confines of their impoverished village had long since been sacrificed at the altar of necessity. She worked tirelessly, taking on laundry, mending clothes, and even scavenging for discarded scraps of food to feed her siblings. Her hands, once soft and delicate, were now rough and calloused, a testament to her unwavering dedication. But even Isabella's unwavering resolve was beginning to crumble. The relentless rain had weakened the already fragile structure of their home, rendering it unsafe. The roof leaked, the walls threatened to collapse, and the meager possessions they owned were constantly damp and mildewed. Her siblings, Manuel, a bright and ambitious 15-year-old, and Valentina, a sweet and innocent 8-year-old, deserved more than this life of constant deprivation. Sterling Caldwell's proposal of marriage had arrived like a bolt of lightning, shocking and unsettling. He was an old man, his face etched with the lines of time and experience, his hair as white as the crest of a wave. The thought of marrying him, of sharing her life with someone so much older, filled Isabella with a deep sense of unease. But the alternative was unthinkable. Eviction loomed large, and she couldn't bear the thought of her siblings living on the streets, exposed to the dangers of the world. Sterling Caldwell, despite his age, was a man of considerable wealth and influence. He offered her family a chance at a life free from the constant struggle for survival, a life where her siblings could receive an education and have a future filled with hope. The silence in the room was broken by Sterling Rosa's choked sobs. "Are you sure you want to do this, Mija?" she asked, her voice thick with unshed tears. "He's an old man, Isabella. You deserve a life of your own, a chance at love and happiness." Isabella knelt beside her mother, taking her withered hands in her own. "I know, Mama," she said, her voice trembling but resolute. "But I have no other choice. This house is falling apart, and Manuel and Valentina need to go to school. If I marry Sterling Caldwell, at least our family will escape this misery." Sterling Rosa looked at her daughter, her eyes filled with a mixture of love and anguish. She knew the depth of Isabella's sacrifice, the weight of responsibility she carried. She wanted to tell her to refuse, to run away and find a different path, but the harsh realities of their situation choked the words in her throat. Manuel, overhearing their conversation, stormed into the room, his young face contorted with anger. "No, Isabella. You don't have to do this," he cried, his voice cracking with emotion. "I can work, I can sell my strength, I can do anything. Don't force yourself to live with someone like him." Isabella turned to her brother, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Manuel, you're still a child," she said softly, her voice filled with a mixture of love and sadness. "I'm doing this to protect your future and Valentina's. I know what I'm doing." Outside, the whispers of their neighbors carried on the wind, a chorus of judgment and speculation. In their small village, where everyone knew everyone else's business, Isabella's decision had spread like wildfire. Some condemned her as a gold digger, while others pitied her, understanding the desperation that drove her to such a drastic measure. But Isabella remained steadfast, her resolve unwavering. She was doing this for her family, and that was all that mattered. The sacrifice was immense, but the love she held for her siblings was even greater. The wedding ceremony was a stark contrast to the simplicity of Isabella's life. The grand cathedral, with its soaring arches and stained glass windows, felt like a world away from the dusty streets and crumbling walls of her village. The air was thick with the scent of incense and the hushed whispers of the guests. Sterling Caldwell, dressed in an impeccably tailored suit, stood at the altar, his posture ramrod straight despite the slight stoop of age. His eyes, though aged, held a glint of power and a deep-seated loneliness. Isabella, in a borrowed white gown that felt alien against her skin, walked down the aisle, her hand resting lightly on Manuel's arm. Her brother's face was a mask of resentment as he glared at Sterling Caldwell, his disapproval palpable. The weight of her decision pressed down on Isabella, threatening to suffocate her. The priest's voice droned on, the words of the ceremony echoing through the cavernous space. Isabella felt detached, as if watching the proceedings from afar. The faces of the guests blurred into a sea of curious stares and whispered judgments. She could feel their eyes on her, scrutinizing her every move, questioning her motives. "Do you, Isabella, take Sterling Caldwell to be your lawfully wedded husband, to have and to hold, from this day forward, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, to love and to cherish, till death do you part?" The question hung in the air, heavy with the weight of its implications. Isabella's gaze met Sterling Caldwell's, a flicker of something unreadable in his eyes. She hesitated, the enormity of her decision washing over her. "I do," she whispered, the words barely audible above the rustling of the guests. A collective gasp rippled through the congregation. Some murmured their disapproval, others simply shook their heads. But Isabella steeled herself against their judgment, focusing on the faces of her siblings, their eyes wide with a mixture of hope and fear. The reception was held at Sterling Caldwell's sprawling mansion, a place of unimaginable luxury and opulence. Isabella felt out of place amidst the gleaming chandeliers and the impeccably dressed guests. She moved through the crowd like a ghost, her smile strained, her heart heavy. It was during the reception that Isabella encountered Olivia, Sterling Caldwell's granddaughter, for the first time. Olivia, with her sleek designer dress and condescending smile, made it clear that Isabella was not welcome. "So, you're the new Mrs. Caldwell," she said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "I hope you enjoy playing house with my grandfather. It's a role that comes with a hefty price tag." Isabella's breath caught in her throat. Olivia's words were a slap in the face, a stark reminder of the sacrifices she had made. She wanted to retort, to defend herself against the accusation of being a gold digger, but she bit back her anger, reminding herself that this marriage was about her family's survival, not her happiness. As the night wore on, Olivia's hostility intensified. She shadowed Isabella's every move, her eyes like daggers, her words laced with venom. She made snide remarks about Isabella's background, her lack of sophistication, and her obvious discomfort in the opulent surroundings. Isabella tried to ignore her, to focus on the small victories, the roof over her siblings' heads, the food on their table, the chance at a better future. But Olivia's words, like tiny poison darts, found their mark. Isabella felt a growing sense of unease, a premonition that her marriage to Sterling Caldwell was not the escape she had hoped for, but the beginning of a new and even more challenging chapter in her life. The week ahead loomed before her, not as a haven of peace and security, but as a battlefield where she would have to fight for her place, for her dignity, and for the future of her family. The days that followed were a blur of unfamiliar routines and simmering tensions. Isabella struggled to adapt to the opulent lifestyle of the mansion, the vastness of the rooms, the abundance of food, the constant presence of servants catering to her every need. It felt like a gilded cage, beautiful yet confining. Olivia's hostility was a constant presence, an undercurrent of malice that permeated every interaction. She seemed determined to make Isabella's life a living hell, constantly criticizing her clothes, her manners, her every word and action. Trying to fit in, I see, Olivia would sneer, watching Isabella navigate the intricacies of a formal dinner. It's adorable how you think you belong here. Isabella tried to maintain her composure, to rise above Olivia's taunts, but the constant barrage of insults began to chip away at her resolve. She found solace in the kindness of Felipe, the elderly butler, who treated her with respect and understanding. He offered a listening ear, a kind word, a much-needed anchor in the turbulent waters of her new life. "Sterling's not let Olivia get to you, Isabella," Felipe would advise, his voice gentle and reassuring. "She's just insecure, afraid of losing her place in this family. You pose no threat to her." But Isabella knew that Olivia's animosity ran deeper than mere insecurity. There was a calculated cruelty in her actions, a deliberate attempt to undermine Isabella's position in the family. She began to suspect that Olivia was actively plotting to drive her out of the mansion, to reclaim her perceived rightful place as Sterling Caldwell's sole heir. One afternoon, while exploring the mansion's extensive library, Isabella stumbled upon a hidden room behind a bookshelf. Inside, she found a collection of old photographs and letters, chronicling Sterling Caldwell's life. As she browsed through the faded images, a photograph caught her eye. It was a picture of a young woman, her face strikingly similar to Olivia's, holding a baby in her arms. A handwritten note on the back identified the woman as Isabella, Sterling Caldwell's daughter, and the baby as Olivia. A wave of understanding washed over Isabella. Isabella, Olivia's mother, had died when Olivia was still a baby. Sterling Caldwell had never remarried, devoting his life to raising his granddaughter. Now, with Isabella's arrival, Olivia feared losing her grandfather's love and attention, the only family she had ever known. Isabella felt a pang of sympathy for Olivia, a flicker of understanding for her anger and resentment. She realized that Olivia wasn't simply a spoiled brat, but a young woman grappling with grief and insecurity. She resolved to try and bridge the gap between them, to show Olivia that she wasn't a threat, but a potential ally. However, Isabella's attempts at reconciliation were met with scorn and derision. Olivia rebuffed her every overture, interpreting her kindness as weakness. "Sterling, think you can fool me with your fake concern," Olivia would sneer. "I know what you're after, my grandfather's money." The situation escalated when a valuable antique vase, a prized possession of Sterling Caldwell's, was mysteriously broken. Olivia immediately accused Isabella of being the culprit, claiming she had seen her near the vase shortly before it shattered. Isabella vehemently denied the accusation, but Olivia's insistent claims planted seeds of doubt in Sterling Caldwell's mind. "I want to believe you, Isabella," Sterling Caldwell said, his voice laced with disappointment, "but Olivia is my granddaughter. I can't imagine her lying about something like this." Isabella felt a growing sense of despair. Olivia's machinations were working, turning Sterling Caldwell against her. She knew that she had to find a way to clear her name, to expose Olivia's lies and manipulations. But how could she prove her innocence when everything seemed stacked against her? The turning point came during a stormy night. The wind howled outside, rattling the windows of the mansion and mirroring the turmoil within Isabella's heart. She couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched, that unseen eyes were following her every move. She retired to her room early, hoping to find some respite from the oppressive atmosphere of the mansion. As she lay in bed, listening to the wind and rain lashing against the windows, she heard a faint creaking sound coming from the hallway. She sat up, her heart pounding in her chest, and peered into the darkness. A shadowy figure flitted past her doorway, disappearing into the gloom. Isabella jumped out of bed, her fear giving way to a surge of adrenaline. She grabbed a heavy candlestick from her bedside table and cautiously opened her door. The hallway was dimly lit, the shadows dancing and swirling like restless spirits. Isabella crept along the corridor, her senses on high alert. The creaking sound led her to the library, where a single lamp cast a pool of light on the polished wooden floor. As she reached the doorway, she saw Olivia standing by the fireplace, her back to the entrance. Isabella froze, her breath catching in her throat. Olivia was holding a small velvet pouch in her hand, and as Isabella watched, she carefully poured its contents into a glass of wine. Isabella's blood ran cold. She knew instantly what Olivia was doing. She was poisoning Sterling Caldwell's wine. "Olivia, what are you doing?" Isabella cried, her voice trembling with a mixture of fear and anger. Olivia whirled around, her face contorted with shock and rage. The pouch slipped from her grasp, scattering its contents, a fine white powder, across the floor. You shouldn't be here," she stammered, her voice laced with panic. "I saw you," Isabella said, her voice shaking but firm. "I know what you were doing. You were trying to poison your grandfather." Olivia's composure crumbled. She burst into tears, sinking to the floor, her body racked with sobs. "I didn't want to hurt him," she cried, her voice muffled by her hands. "I just wanted you gone. I wanted him back." Isabella stared at Olivia, her anger slowly giving way to pity. She realized that Olivia wasn't a monster, but a deeply troubled young woman, driven to desperate measures by her grief and insecurity. She knelt beside Olivia, gently placing a hand on her shoulder. "I understand why you did this," Isabella said softly, her voice filled with compassion. "But this isn't the way. You can't solve your problems by hurting others." Olivia looked up at Isabella, her eyes red and swollen. For the first time, Isabella saw a flicker of vulnerability in her gaze, a glimmer of hope that they could find a way to bridge the chasm that separated them. The discovery of Olivia's attempted poisoning shattered the fragile peace of the mansion. Sterling Caldwell, though shaken by his granddaughter's betrayal, refused to press charges. He believed that Olivia needed help, not punishment, and he insisted on handling the situation within the family. A family meeting was called, the tension in the room thick enough to cut with a knife. Sterling Caldwell sat at the head of the table, his face etched with weariness and sadness. Olivia sat beside him, her head bowed, her body trembling. Isabella sat across from them, her heart heavy with conflicting emotions. She felt a strange mixture of anger, pity, and relief. "Olivia," Sterling Caldwell began, his voice heavy with disappointment, "I can't understand why you would do this. Isabella is your family now. She's my wife." Olivia looked up, her eyes filled with tears. "I know, grandfather," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. "I was wrong. I was so afraid of losing you, of being replaced. I didn't know what I was doing." Sterling Caldwell reached out and took Olivia's hand, his gaze softening with compassion. "You will never lose me, Olivia," he said gently. "Isabella is not a replacement, she's an addition to our family. She's here to stay." He then turned to Isabella, his eyes filled with gratitude. "Isabella," he said, "I owe you an apology. I should have trusted you from the beginning. You have proven yourself to be a woman of great strength and integrity. I am grateful for your patience and understanding." Isabella nodded, her heart swelling with emotion. She had finally earned Sterling Caldwell's trust and respect. But the battle wasn't over yet. She still had to win over the rest of the household staff, many of whom had been swayed by Olivia's lies and manipulations. The next few days were a delicate dance of diplomacy and reconciliation. Isabella reached out to the staff, one by one, addressing their concerns and dispelling their misconceptions. She showed them her genuine concern for their well-being, her willingness to work alongside them, her commitment to creating a harmonious environment within the mansion. She organized a staff meeting where she openly acknowledged the tensions and misunderstandings of the past. She spoke honestly about her background, her reasons for marrying Sterling Caldwell, her desire to be a part of their community. She listened patiently to their grievances, acknowledging their feelings and validating their concerns. Slowly but surely, the tide began to turn. The staff, touched by Isabella's sincerity and humility, began to warm to her. They saw beyond the rumors and the whispers, recognizing her genuine kindness and her unwavering dedication to the family. Even the most skeptical among them began to see her as a valuable asset to the household, a force for positive change. In the aftermath of the attempted poisoning and the subsequent revelations, a palpable shift occurred within the dynamics of the mansion. The air, once thick with suspicion and animosity, began to clear. Olivia, stripped of her manipulative power, retreated into a shell of remorse and self-reproach. Sterling Caldwell, deeply hurt by his granddaughter's actions, nevertheless extended a hand of forgiveness, recognizing the pain and insecurity that fueled her behavior. He arranged for Olivia to see a therapist, hoping to help her process her grief and heal from the emotional wounds of the past. Isabella, having weathered the storm, emerged stronger and more resolute than ever. She had earned the respect and trust of Sterling Caldwell and the household staff, proving her worth not through wealth or status, but through her unwavering kindness, her resilience, and her genuine concern for others. She continued to manage the household affairs with efficiency and grace, creating a sense of order and harmony that had been lacking before her arrival. The relationship between Isabella and Olivia remained fraught with tension, but a tentative truce began to emerge. Isabella, recognizing Olivia's vulnerability, extended an olive branch, offering her support and understanding. Olivia, though still hesitant and guarded, began to respond to Isabella's overtures, acknowledging the sincerity of her intentions. One afternoon, as Isabella was tending to the garden, Olivia approached her, her face etched with a mixture of apprehension and remorse. "Isabella," she began, her voice barely above a whisper, I want to apologize for everything I did to you. I was wrong. I was so jealous and insecure. I let my fear blind me to the truth." Isabella turned to Olivia, her heart softening with compassion. "I forgive you, Olivia," she said gently. "I understand why you did what you did. We can start over, if you'd like." A tear rolled down Olivia's cheek, a tear of relief and gratitude. "Thank you, Isabella," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. "I don't know if I deserve your forgiveness, but I'm grateful for it." From that day forward, the relationship between Isabella and Olivia began to transform. They started having conversations, sharing meals, and even working together on charitable projects for the community. They discovered a shared passion for helping others, a common ground that helped to bridge the gap between them. They weren't quite friends yet, but the seeds of a genuine connection had been sown. Life in the mansion settled into a new rhythm, a harmonious blend of old traditions and new beginnings. Isabella, now fully integrated into the family, continued to manage the household affairs with grace and efficiency, earning the respect and affection of everyone around her. She established a foundation dedicated to supporting underprivileged families in the community, using her newfound resources to make a real difference in the lives of others. Olivia, under the guidance of her therapist and with Isabella's unwavering support, began to heal from her emotional wounds. She enrolled in college, pursuing her passion for art history, and gradually emerged from her shell of insecurity and resentment. She and Isabella developed a genuine bond of friendship, a testament to the transformative power of forgiveness and understanding. Sterling Caldwell, watching the blossoming relationship between his wife and his granddaughter, felt a deep sense of peace and contentment. He had found a loving companion in Isabella, a woman who had brought joy and purpose back into his life. He had also witnessed the transformation of his granddaughter, from a troubled and resentful young woman into a confident and compassionate individual. One evening, as the family gathered for dinner, Sterling Caldwell raised his glass, his eyes twinkling with affection. "To Isabella," he said, his voice filled with warmth, "a woman who has brought so much light and love into our lives. She has taught us the true meaning of family, the importance of forgiveness, and the power of compassion." Isabella smiled, her heart overflowing with gratitude. She had come to this mansion a poor girl, seeking refuge from the storms of life. She had faced hardship and betrayal, but through it all, she had remained true to herself, her kindness and resilience shining through the darkness. She had not only saved her own family from ruin, but had also brought healing and transformation to the family she had married into. As the years passed, Isabella continued to flourish. She became a pillar of the community, known for her generosity and her unwavering commitment to helping others. She and Sterling Caldwell enjoyed a loving and fulfilling marriage, based on mutual respect and affection. Olivia, having graduated from college, pursued a successful career in art history, finding fulfillment and happiness in her work. The mansion, once a place of tension and strife, became a haven of peace and laughter, a testament to the enduring power of love, forgiveness, and the unbreakable bonds of family.